Television highlights of the news of yesteryear.
Pictorial presentation of a power-packed President, Theodore Roosevelt, 26th Chief Executive of the United States. His love of country proved a boon to industry, enterprise, and safety. Years after his historic capture of San Juan Hill, the Rough Riders he organized and captained paid homage to their leader. But the Theodore Roosevelt story embraces more than just one battle, more than just a single accomplishment. The Spanish-American conflict, which saw his cavalry regiment make history, was preceded by his resigning as Assistant Secretary of the Navy in order to take active part in the fighting. In 1895, he headed the police board of New York City. His program alienated him from corrupt politicians, but won him public esteem. In 1897, Roosevelt, in federal office under McKinley, campaigned to put our Navy on a wartime basis, for he foresaw the struggle with Spain. His birthday, October 27th, is now known as Navy Day, and he is the father of our modern Navy. An intensive training program for naval recruits was a Roosevelt idea. Supremacy of the American Navy was his objective, one that was attained mightily. Then in 1901, following our success in the Spanish-American War, he was elected vice president, and the next year after McKinley's assassination, he became president. In 1904, elected president by a tremendous majority, his Rough Riders proudly escorted their leader to the inaugural ceremony. Violent in criticism of corporations he termed malefactors of great wealth, Roosevelt found time and inclination to set aside bird reserves. Mingled with his trust-busting activities, the humanity of the man dictated a nod to nature. Forest preserves were created under his direction, and responsibility for the Irrigation Act, which saw hundreds of miles of desert area converted into fertile soil, belonged to the multifaceted Theodore Roosevelt. In 1903, he sent the first cable around the world. But among his greatest accomplishments was the Panama Canal, the vital waterway link between two oceans. It was ironic that his Caribbean policy, which stemmed from the opening of the Peaceways Canal, should have inspired his famous "Speak softly and carry a big stick" watchword. World War I found Teddy Roosevelt pleading for active duty. Here in Springfield, Illinois, his request refused. With one son killed and two wounded, he urged the speeding of the war to a peace of overwhelming victory. This is the tribute of yesterday's newsreel to a great American, Theodore Roosevelt. It's the early 1920s, and Harry Houdini, master of magic, is about to try one of his most difficult stunts. Security held in a straitjacket and suspended upside down from an office building, the man who amazed the world will attempt to free himself. You are watching pictures of the greatest magician the world has ever known, a man who thrilled, baffled, and amazed the public and scientists with equal ease. The name Houdini meant startling, bewildering, impossible feats similar to this. Houdini died in 1926, taking with him to the grave the secrets of his mastery of magic. It's 1931, and Aimee Semple McPherson marries a third time. The famous evangelist with her latest bridegroom, David L. Hutton.
I was just thinking this morning about that scripture. The first words that God ever spoke concerning man were, "It is not good for man to be alone." I think this old bachelor, Mr. Hutton, just decided to take that literally. And if it's not good for man to be alone, how much more is it not good for woman to be alone?
This is Aimee as thousands remember her in the pulpit. 1935, and she returns from Europe.
It's the very spot where our Lord was raised from the dead and his ascension from the Mount of Olives. Then returning up through Europe and catching the boat for home. My trip was primarily one for health and recuperation following my nervous breakdown of some 3 years ago. And I'm very grateful for this beautiful rest. I'm so happy to be back in America, back to our church and to the evangelistic work. When trouble or shadows cross our sky, it's a marvelous thing to be able to turn to the Rock of Ages and the Lord's own work.
Take a guess, movie fans. Who is it? She was the first of the great screen sirens, star in 1915 of The Vampire, then The Serpent, Cleopatra, and other films. Give up? She was Theda Bara. It's 1928, and Sir Harry Lauder arrives in America on another of his farewell tours. The famous singing son of Scotland, who popularized songs like It's Great to Get Up in the Morning, is greeted on his arrival by the English sportsman, Sir Thomas Lipton.
Most widely discussed trial of the 20s, the Darwin Case, July 24th, 1925. Counsel representing defendant John T. Scopes in the center included Dudley Field Malone and Clarence Darrow. Scopes, Dayton, Tennessee high school teacher, is to be tried for teaching evolution of man from monkeys, despite a Tennessee law forbidding instruction in this doctrine. Threatened issue, according to defense attorneys, was the right to teach what science had found factual, but the prosecution insisted it was the Bible that was on trial. Listeners hear Clarence Darrow for the defense declare that if today you make teaching evolution a crime, tomorrow you may ban books and newspapers. This impassioned statement was refuted by the prosecution's William Jennings Bryan, who stated, "I am more interested in the Rock of Ages than the Age of Rocks." Found guilty by the court, John T. Scopes was fined $100 in costs, but it was the last public appearance for William Jennings Bryan, who died 2 days later.
New York fashion show in 1928 saw the ladies' latest frills and furs, like this mink wraparound on the right with stand-up collar and ermine lapels. The scarf's ermine-trimmed, too. This gal's all wrapped up in herself and in Fitch. The coat is fastened at the hip, as you probably noticed. This features flowered embroidery on the lining with ermine again used as trimming, this time complementing black caracal. Now let's look at 1928's hat attractions. Black straw with lace veil. Plush with aigrette decoration. Friends, that's hats.
Johnstown, Pennsylvania, scene in 1889 of the worst flood ever recorded, is submerged again March 18, 1936, as floodwaters engulfed the city and spread to Pittsburgh and other Keystone State cities. Heavy rains caused the Conemaugh River to overflow, and an all-encompassing rush of water inundated the countryside. Now watch sheer terror such as you've never seen before. Rumors of a dam break drive thousands of people on a mad rush for higher ground. Purposeless is this panic as the dam holds and the flood subsides.
Loveliest lady of the air, Ruth Elder. It's September 1927, and Miss Elder is to set out for Paris. 4 months after Lindbergh's flight, Ruth and pilot George Halderman are ready. Last pictures made before the plane took off, only to plunge into the sea near its goal. The following month, in a new plane, Miss Elder arrives at the Bourget field, none the worse for the failure of her non-stop try. Termed the most beautiful of America's flying ladies, Miss Elder's reception in France is a testimonial to her courage and previous flying accomplishments. En route back home aboard the Aquitania 1 month later, new laurels await Ruth Elder. But first, there's a reunion with husband Lyle Womack. Deluged with theatrical offers, Miss Elder signs with E.A. Schiller for a vaudeville tour that nets her $1,000 a day for 100 days.
1930. Recognize this young lady? Well, she's Eleanor Holm, about to try for a record in the backstroke at Scarborough, New York. That's the girl who later made the Olympics and married Billy Rose in the center lane. And she's out to win. Backstroke record holder Eleanor Holm. The 1932 Olympics at Los Angeles. The scene is the Coliseum, and the world's outstanding athletes are here. Mildred Babe Dietrichson making the javelin do some traveling. 143 feet plus, a new world's record for Babe. A classic discus heave with Lillian Copeland doing the tossing. Another record, 133 feet, 2 inches. Good going, gal. Now it's Ed Gordon of the University of Iowa in a 25-foot, 3/4-inch leap. That's Gordon. And now let's watch as Leo Sexton, former Georgetown star, makes his bid in the shot put. Sexton's competing for the New York Athletic Club, and his winning toss measures 62 feet plus for another new Olympic mark. It's the hammer throw now with Ireland's Dr. Patrick O'Callaghan. When they put the tape to this one, they'll find it traveled 176 feet, 11 1/8 inches. That's that, Pat. The finals in the 100-meter sprint. With the runners bunched at the start, it's Ed Toland of Michigan in the foreground, edging in front of Metcalf of Marquette, and holding his lead to win by a whisker in 10 3/10 seconds. A new Olympic record for Toland.